When Buckwheat Flowers Bloom, author Yi Hyo-seok. The summer market was doomed from the outset. Although the sun still hung high in the sky, the marketplace lay deserted, the scorching sun beating down on the few lingering under the awnings. Most villagers had departed, leaving only disgruntled woodcutters unable to sell their goods, grumbling in the streets. For those who relied on a few fish or oil bottles to scrape by, hope was fading fast. Even the swarms of buzzing flies and mischievous children were becoming a nuisance. Heo Sang-won, a leather merchant marked by smallpox scars on his face and a skilled left-handed player, pondered Cho Seon-dal's suggestion cautiously. Shall we call it a day? Good idea. Maybe we can turn a decent profit at the Bongpyeong market. We'll need to earn some coin at the Daewha market tomorrow. We'll have to trek through the night, won't we? Will the moon be bright? As Cho Seon-dal counted the day's earnings with a clinking sound, Heo Sang-won began folding up the broad canvas spread over the pole. Linen and high-quality silk were tightly bound around two sturdy boxes, while scraps of cloth lay strewn haphazardly on the mat. Others were already packing up their stalls. Several vendors had already departed with their wares. Fishmongers, tinsmiths, sweet sellers, and ginger merchants were nowhere to be seen. Tomorrow, markets awaited in Jinbu and Daewha. Merchants would have to stay awake through the night and travel 60 to 70 miles in any direction. The marketplace was chaotic, resembling the aftermath of a feast, with fights breaking out in taverns. Women's sharp voices pierced through the drunken ramblings. Such events were customary on market evenings. Sang-won, isn't it about time for a drink? We're heading to Chungju's place. At the sound of the woman's voice, Cho Seon-dal chuckled as though suddenly remembering something. It's like chasing the wind. It's no contest against those young ones. Well, that might not be entirely true. True, they can't resist Chungju's charm, but even so, it seems Dong-yi has managed to capture Chungju's attention. What's gotten into that lad? Did he offer something valuable to tempt her? I thought he was a dependable fellow. We can't know everything. Let's not dwell on it and just go. I'll buy you a drink. Not particularly inclined, Heo Sang-won pursued matters that didn't truly resonate with him. He remained aloof from women's affairs. Scarred by smallpox, he lacked the courage to pursue them and had never courted anyone. His life was solitary and convoluted. Just the thought of Chungju made his face flush with embarrassment, his legs tremble, and his senses scatter. Upon entering Chungju's place and spotting Dong-yi at the drinking table, he suddenly felt a surge of anger. He couldn't stand seeing him so familiar with the women, causing a scene. Dong-yi was quite the troublemaker, drinking since early morning and flirting with the women. He only brought shame upon our group of peddlers as he roamed about. As a reprimand, he stood in Dong-yi's way. Their eyes met, and Dong-yi's expression seemed to say, "Mind your own business." In a fit of anger, Heo Sang-won couldn't resist slapping him. Though Dong-yi rose in anger as well, Heo Sang-won continued unfazed. I don't know where you learned your manners, but I'm sure you have parents who wouldn't approve of your wild behavior. Business should be conducted with dignity, not spent frolicking with women. Leave and clean up your act promptly. However, seeing him leave without a word made him reconsider. He still felt a lingering sense of regret, wondering if he had been too harsh. It wasn't his place to intervene among fellow patrons at the tavern. Clearly irritated, Chungju pursed his lips and poured the drinks roughly. Cho Seon-dal tried to lighten the mood by saying to her, "Have you taken a liking to him? Entertaining a youngster is sinful." After a lengthy lecture and scolding, emboldened by newfound courage and an odd desire to become thoroughly drunk, Heo Sang-won nearly finished the drink offered to him. In the haze of drunkenness, he found himself more intrigued by Dong-yi's affairs than thoughts of women. How foolish was I to interfere with the woman using my own appearance? There was also a part of me that scolded my own foolishness. Therefore, when Dong-yi rushed back in haste later, he threw the glass he was drinking from and stumbled out of Chungju's place in confusion. Look at that brat. He's going wild all by himself because Kim Chomji's donkey ran off, kicking up dirt and frothing at the mouth like a mad cow. It's ridiculous. We just stood there watching. Take a look at his antics. The kid chuckled mischievously. Heo Sang-won felt his face flush for reasons he didn't understand. To shield himself from the stares, he had to block the animal's belly. The old Jack likes a Jenny's ass, that animal, not even realizing she's out of his league. The kid's laughter made Heo Sangwon hesitate, unable to endure the mockery. He raised his whip and chased after the kid. If you're going to chase, chase properly, clumsy lefty. But he couldn't catch up with the fleeing children. A lefty couldn't catch a single child. Heo Sangwon threw away the whip. His drunkenness made his body sway awkwardly. Let's just leave. There's no point in hanging out with these brats. The kids in the market are even scarier than adults. Jo Sondal and Dong Yi each saddled their own donkeys and began loading their cargo. The sun was noticeably slanting down. Even after nearly 20 years of traveling from market to market, Heo Sangwon rarely skipped the Bongpyeong market. While he occasionally ventured to neighboring counties like Cheongju and Jecheon and even wandered as far as the Yeongnam region, he mostly roamed within the county from start to finish, except for occasional trips to Gangneung to buy goods. Although he boasted of Cheongju as his hometown, there didn't seem to be any occasions where he went back to care for it. The beautiful landscapes along the road from market to market remained a longing for his hometown. After walking for half a day, when he got close to the villages with markets, and the rough donkey let out a loud bray, especially in the evening when the torches flickered in the darkness, Heo Sangwon's heart always raced at the sight of the familiar scenery. In his youth, there were times when Heo Sangwon earned and saved money wisely, but during the year when a big party was held in the town, he squandered it all on revelry and gambling in just 3 days. He even came close to selling his donkey, but refrained from it out of attachment. Eventually, he had no choice but to resume his journey as a peddler. When he fled the town with his animals, he cried on the roadside, thankful he hadn't sold his friend. Starting to accumulate debts, he realized that the idea of amassing wealth was misguided, and he barely managed to make ends meet by traveling from market to market. Despite indulging in revelry, he never dared to take a wife. He viewed women as cold and cruel creatures, feeling melancholic about never having a lifelong companion. The only constant in his life was his faithful donkey. Yet he couldn't forget the peculiar encounter, the first and only one of its kind, that happened in his early days of traveling to Bongpyeong. Even reminiscing about it now brought him a sense of accomplishment. It was a moonlit night, but how it ended up like that, I still can't fathom it. Heo Sangwon was once again trying to bring up that story tonight. Since becoming friends, Jo Sundal had heard it countless times. However, he couldn't express his annoyance, and Heo Sangwon continued to repeat the same tale over and over again. Such stories suit moonlit nights. He glanced at his friend's face, not out of feeling sorry, but because he was moved by the moonlight. Although it was waning, the moon, just past full, still cast a soft glow generously. The conversation would continue for 20 miles of the night road, crossing 2 mountain passes and a stream, traversing fields and mountain paths. The moon was now hanging over the long ridge of the mountain. The silence was as profound as the quiet of a pin dropping. The moon's breath, akin to that of a beast, could be heard as if it were within arm's reach. Meanwhile, bean pods and corn leaves shimmered greener under the moonlight. Entire mountainsides were blanketed in buckwheat fields, where newly bloomed flowers resembled sprinkled salt in the dense moonlight, almost suffocatingly so. The scent of ripe buckwheat flowers was poignant, and the steps of the donkeys felt refreshing. Due to the narrow path, the 3 men rode their donkeys in single file. The sound of bells tinkled pleasantly as they passed through the buckwheat fields. Although Heo Sangwon's voice leading the conversation did not clearly reach Dong Yi, who stood at the end, he was not bored, enjoying the cool evening. It was just like tonight, on market day, Heo Sangwon began. The inn was oppressively hot, making sleep impossible. So around midnight, I woke up alone and went to bathe in the stream. Bongpyeong is always like this. Everywhere you look, there are buckwheat fields, and there's not a stream in sight without white flowers. Although it would have been fine to undress on the stone bed, I ended up going into the mill because the moon was too bright. Strange things happen a lot. That's where I unexpectedly ran into Mr. Song's daughter. She was the most beautiful woman in Bongpyeong. Maybe it was just meant to be that way. He puffed on his pipe for a long while, as if conserving his words. The fragrant, amber-colored smoke melted into the night air. She wasn't waiting for me, and it's not like there was someone eagerly anticipated either. The girl was crying, you see. Though I could only guess why. The Song family was going through a tough time, and it was around the time when they were struggling to make ends meet. With all the household worries, how could their daughter not be worried? They say they'll send her off to a good home, but she says she'd rather die than get married. However, is there a time when a maiden appears more attractive than when she is crying? At first, it was surprising, but it seemed like she softened a bit, so we ended up chatting about this and that. It was a scary and yet astounding night, now that I think about it. The day we set off for Jeshion was the following day. When the next market opened, the entire household had already vanished. The marketplace was in an uproar, fueled by rumors suggesting that she might end up being sold to a tavern at best, as per the gossip behind the girl's back. How many times did I search through the market in Jeshion? But there was not a trace of her whatsoever. The first night turned out to be the last. How could one forget Bongpyeong from then on? You were lucky. Encountering such remarkable events isn't easy. You often end up with something worthless, have children, and worry endlessly. However, living as a peddler until old age is no easy task, wouldn't you agree? I intend to retire by autumn. Perhaps I'll start a small business, or reconnect with my family. Walking all year round is no easy feat. As they departed the mountain path and entered a wider road, Dongyi, always reserved, took the lead, with their donkeys lining up in a row. You're still young, in your prime. Despite the mishap at Chungju's place, don't dwell on it. Oh, not at all. It's rather embarrassing. Why would women matter now? All I think about day and night is my mother. With Heo Sangwon's tale weighing heavily, Dongyi's tone softened. It felt like my heart would burst hearing about parents, but I don't have a father, only my mother as kin. Is he deceased? He was never there from the start. How could a maiden give birth alone? Where in the world? While Sangwon and Sondal chuckled, Dongyi stayed solemn. I was embarrassed to say it, but it's true. Near Jekchon, my mother gave birth to me alone, cast out of her home. It's a ludicrous tale. Until now, I've never seen my father's face or known my origins. Ahead, they dismounted from their donkeys at a steep hill. They paused their conversation as they struggled. The donkeys occasionally slipped. Sangwon, needing rest, often due to his age, envied Dongyi's vigor. Sweat drenched his back. Beyond the hill lay a stream. With the bridge washed away, they undressed to wade across. Sangwon, tying his belt, comically half-naked, shivered in the cold water. So, who raised you? Mother wed a man to start a liquor business. He was a drunkard and scoundrel. Has there been a peaceful day since? You seemed comfortable for your age, but it sounds quite the opposite. The deep water reached their waist. The current and slippery stones made crossing tricky. While the donkeys and Sondal crossed quickly, Dongyi lagged, assisting Sangwon. Was your mother's family from Jechon? I don't know. She rarely spoke of it, but she was from Bongpyeong. Bongpyeong, eh? What of your father's family? I've no idea. Never heard of them. Well, I suppose. Rubbing his eyes, Sangwon stumbled into the water, fully clothed. Dongyi rescued him from being swept away. I seem to have lost my wits. Don't worry. Does your mother search for your father? She wishes to meet him. Where is she now? Separated from my stepfather in Jecheon, planning to take her to Bongpyeong in fall. Hopefully, we'll live decently. Admirable. Did you say fall? Dongyi's back warmed Sangwon. Crossing the water, he regretted not relying more on Dongyi. You've blundered today, Sangwon. Sondal chuckled, observing him. The donkey, I was pondering and stumbled. Remember? Even in that state, it produced a decent offspring. At Gangnung's town, is anything cuter than a donkey foal, ears perked and trotting lightly? Sometimes I detour through town just to see. A donkey foal that makes people sink in water. Remarkable. Sangwon wrung his clothes despite chattering teeth and intense cold, feeling strangely lighthearted. Shall we head to the tavern, light a courtyard fire and rest, boil water for the donkey, tomorrow to Jecheon after Daewha Market? Are you going to Jecheon too, Sangwon? After so long, I want to visit. Care to join me, Dongyi? As they walked, Dongyi held a whip in his left hand. Even Sangwon, with night blindness, noticed. Light steps, the bells echo across the night field.